time it is!
Thank you for checking out the C Squared Hour, my first episode of the new year. I hope 2021 is turning out better than 2020 for everyone. Yeah. I could go the rest of my life without seeing that again. Thank God 2020 is over. This is going to be our year. Or, oh my God, if 2020 was bad, this is even worse. Shut up. Time is just a construct anyway. So, whatever. I don't know. As I get into this, I want to let everyone know the beer I'm drinking today is Widmer Brothers Hefeweizen out of Portland, Oregon. I was actually recommended, I don't think I was 100% recommended this. I was walking through the store for my New Year's Eve beers, and this is one of my go-to for kind of all occasion beers. And so I decided, let's give it a run on the podcast. So Widmer Brothers Brewing out of Portland, Oregon. If you're in the Northwest, you can actually find this in the yellow box and bottle. Like I said, it is one of my go-to everyday beer, so to speak. You know, it works well with anything. So that's what I am going with. Now, I know some of my longtime listeners are going to be asking yourself where the other Chris is. Well, it's funny. He got this notion in December, and for the last couple weeks, he's actually been sitting outside of the Philadelphia Mint. You know, where they print all the money and everything like that. I mean, obviously, they're trying to move to a cashless society, right? That's we're not arguing that, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure, but he, worrying about the cashless society thing, is actually protesting outside of the Mint. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him what led him to go there rather than, I don't know, maybe the Capitol's too busy at this time. I'll get into that. But he decided to protest the going into a cashless society. And mainly, his worry is, the Salvation Army, is the Ronald McDonald House, whatever the charity is at your grocery store where you dump in your extra change. He's worried about that. And quite honestly, I applaud his efforts, because that is one thing that no one's thinking about. The spare change charities. What are they going to do when we go from cash to a cashless society? Where's their bailout? I mean, I guess being tax-free is kind of a bailout, but where are they going to get that lost money? How are we going to? I mean, is there going to be a spare change app where you have to, rather than, I guess, now that I say that, they're already starting to try. Would you like to, add would you like to round up and donate your change to this? I've seen that at a couple stores, so maybe he's just off base, but I highly doubt that as many people round up on the machines as dump their extra change in the red bin outside stores. So he's actually in Philadelphia right now protesting the move to a cashless society, trying to keep at least change. That's the weird thing. He doesn't mind cash going away. I mean, I see his point to an extent, but he's more worried about just the change part of it. And he's right there in front of the National Mint. The problem he's running into is he's really the only one there because everyone else went to DC. It's about a 2-hour drive. I know, I've made it, and everyone's over there. So his protest is getting a little lost in the weeds, but who knows? I think he said something about planning 3 weeks protesting. So I don't know. Could be a good thing for him. I definitely commend the effort, or maybe not the cause, but definitely the reason for it. Or definitely, I maybe don't want the same solution, but I definitely appreciate where he's coming from on that. So that is where he is for this episode. All right. Now, I started a new segment a couple weeks ago, basically my way too late evaluation of things. And this kind of falls in line because apparently the show's been on for fucking ever. And it's still going. And I'm going to let you all know. Anyone who says they are a Doctor Who fan, that TV show with the fucking phone booth and the whatever, whoever says they're a fan is a jagoff. So, there you have it. There's my analysis. I get, I'm not into the sci-fi stuff as much as everyone else. But I've seen enough sci-fi shows to know that you really have to be... No one actually likes that show. I think to be accepted into that community, I think you have to pretend to like it. I tried giving it a shot. I watched some of the new ones. The show's been on for 400 fucking years. I went back and watched some. Yeah, if you truly like that show, you're a jagoff. If you don't like that show, but that's what you have to do to get accepted in your community, find a new community, alright? It's just not a good one. I'm sorry, folks. It's not that good. There's other sci-fi, quote-unquote, nerdy shows you can watch that don't have a fucking dumbass phone booth, and just find something else out, alright? It's not worth it. So that's my late analysis on that. Now, this show is a couple days late, but this time there is a real reason for it. I wanted to wait for the Georgia runoffs to happen for the Senate seats, and last time, because that was going on, the day I would have been recording. Last time I tried to do an election episode, I was on for 4 hours. I'm sure none of you listened to it, and I don't blame any of you, at least for all of it, and nothing was answered overnight. So I did it for nothing. So I said, you know what? Fuck that. I'm not doing that again. I will give it a day and wait to see what happens with that. And it worked out better for the Dems than the pubs. So, tough break, I guess. I don't know what to say. I mean, they have control now, so whatever. It's going to be, if anything actually gets done, it's going to be a good year and a half before anything can actually get done. At minimum, because there's still going to be the unfair crowd. There's going to be all this. You're going to have to wade through all the dumb shit. You always have to see it. There's a 6-month period where, we're not going to let the new president do anything, and then they start working a little bit. It's going to be even longer this time, just for all the nonsense that's going on. So, we'll see what happens with that, but I don't think we're going to see the race for the senators and representatives mean that much for a good year, at least. Well, good news, however. Washington State has released a plan, and it's comprehensive for businesses to open back up and to get us into a new thing. He announced it. He announced it Monday. Coming up in the next couple days, I'm going to give a plan and how we're going to help these businesses and what we're going to do. And a plan came out. All it is saying basically what happened last time. We have to have this many people before we go into phase 2, and then you can have 25% of your business open. But right now, everything's the same. Okay, there's your COVID plan. There's your trying to level out flatten the curve. That was March. I don't think I've heard that since April. Trying to flatten the curve. That's the plan for there. But even Now even businesses that I see that were all for it, especially on the Seattle side of the state, where they're sitting there, a lot more liberal than this side of the state. These businesses, looking at their, Twitter and Instagram and things like that, were more along less, oh, fuck the governor, fuck this isn't real. More like, okay, this is what we have to do, so we're going to do this, keep you safe. We'll see when we can open back up. We're finally starting to see those businesses say, look, man, I mean, do something for us. Like, give us some sort of fucking plan. Any plan coming from the national level isn't trickling down to the local level the way it's supposed to, the way Reaganomics is supposed to work, but it's not trickling down that way. So these businesses are saying, well, you said there's going to be a fucking plan. All your plan is to open shit up in 8 different zones. Like, everyone's in a different zone and it's open based on the zone. I'm sorry to say this, but you know what? Fuck it. I'm not sorry to say this. Our governor, the governor of Washington State, has to be a laughingstock around the country, right? I know Newsom is, but that's, bigger population and shit like that. But is it known nationally how fucking terrible it is? I mean, obviously, I'm right next to it, so I see more of it than... But the fact that he hasn't had an original idea since he's been in office, and the comprehensive plan for businesses is... What? Wait for shit to open again? Okay, what about these ones that can't wait another month to open or they're going to close? Do we go to my idea and just send him the fucking bill? Maybe that's something we should vote for in the midterm elections. We should basically say, since the government and the governor and its office has arbitrarily decided what businesses have to do and should have to do solely based on what's happening in one city of his entire state, maybe the governor and the governor's office should have to pay for any sort of business dealings, issues, things along those lines that people are running into because of this. Obviously, it's not going to happen because it's a slippery slope. You start looking at the governors, all of a sudden the representatives are going to be, state senators are going to be like, oh God, stay out of my pocket. So obviously that's not going to happen. But something's got to get figured out for these businesses, for shit like that. I have been very consistent on this. I'm inconsistent on a lot of shit. All right. I get that. But I've been very consistent on this point. I'm not sitting here saying COVID's real, COVID isn't real, or, fuck this, we shouldn't be doing this, or shouldn't, whatever. I'm not a fucking scientist. We all know that. I'm not a rocket surgeon. All right. I am a drunk guy in a medium-sized city who bought a microphone. That's all I am. So I'm not arguing with this or anything like that, but you can't expect to just say, oh, everything's shut down and, figure it out on your own. I haven't seen, and I could be wrong, but reading what these businesses say across the state, I haven't seen one thing that says, oh, well, here's what he did to, help us out, or here's what he's doing to the national level ain't helping. So you look to the state's putting these restrictions on. You'd think the state would help out with them, but obviously not. So I'm not against all that. I'm not saying, don't wear a mask, or this mask is bullshit, or masks make it worse, or the vaccine is giving you microchips, or some shit like that. Yeah, all right, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I know what's really in the vaccine. Not only does it help, it also puts in tracking stuff. It also does experiments on you. But I'm not going to be against taking the vaccine or what have you, but luckily I'm on the low level of the line. So by the time I get to it, we'll see if everyone's growing a third foot or whatever, getting a different type of AIDS or what have you because of the vaccine. But if the regulations are coming from the state level, the state should have some idea if, in their opinion, they're dropping the ball at the federal level. My opinion. That being said, it was reported yesterday that about a dozen people, I think was the number. I could look it up, but I'm watching an NBA game on my tablet just to keep my mind at ease, trying to keep... Oh, I forgot to burn my lavender candle today. Huh. Well, we'll see how this goes. But about a dozen people broke in onto the lawn of the governor's mansion, and they were armed, and they were Trump guys, and I think they were worried about the voting fraud or what have you. Again, we're in the state of Washington. Take a lot of fucking voter fraud to do something like that. So, obviously, well, I guess not obviously, but right wing's pissed off, and there was the whole thing about the Capitol break-in. Now, as I'm watching that, I was getting kind of annoyed because, and this is, the people say, the liberal media, and while they do spout off a lot of opinions, what I was annoyed about was the fact that watching what's-his-face, Blake, the guy who got shot in the back by the cops, or by the cop, and he's not getting charges brought against him. There was a march in Kenosha the other night, or might have been last night. Oh, no, it was... No, last night. Yeah, it was the night I was supposed to record, Tuesday. There was a march, but it was pretty peaceful, and it was very peaceful, or, they had... The only live feed I could find was someone who was marching with them, putting it up on YouTube, and it was just people chanting stuff, and they were relatively well behaved from what I could see, and I'm sitting there thinking, all you guys are showing is the race in Georgia, and last time there was these sorts of protests, you were all about them, you were right there. Could it be because they were more violent, and because they were lighting businesses on fire and shit like that? Seems likely. So, before everyone jumps on the big liberal media thing, yes, they spout off their opinions. But look, there was a chance last night to show, or I'm sorry again, Tuesday night, I guess last night too, there were still demonstrations last night too. There was a chance to show that, hey, maybe not all protests coming from this issue have to have buildings lit on fire. Oh, look, they can actually do it this way. So that was my thinking about it. I was pretty annoyed. And then I really saw what was happening at the Capitol over the last day or so. And holy shit. This, I think, especially in the history of this illustrious and influential podcast, this is definitely the first time, I think, the media has undersold something along these lines. Holy shit. When I first heard it being reported, and I was first reading about it, just headlines. I didn't go too deep into it when I first saw it. Just thinking, oh, well, a couple people stormed the Capitol wall and, whatever. Boy, was I wrong. Holy shit. They're in the hall. They're stealing podiums and shit. They're standing at the fucking... Wow. That is batshit. That is absolutely crazy. And the fact that the original reporting that I saw, and this is, again, I said I didn't read into it, but I have 5 different news apps that send me alerts, all right? And then I have the social media thing where the other news sources will put up shit. And I follow a bunch more news sources. And the fact that it didn't say anything more about it, the fact that I still thought it was just people who climbed the fence and were chanting shit with guns because they're Trump people and what have you. Again, I've been calling for it, but this was not the right time to undersell something, media. Holy fuck. Yeah, it was. That's something you only imagine to see. That's a fucking that's a action comedy kind of thing, and they're talking, and I like how they're talking like, well, these Antifa people were, because they're finding pictures of people who were at both rallies or people that look like they're at both rallies. These Antifa people are posing as Trump supporters, or oh look, these Trump supporters back then they were with Antifa marches or they're with BLM marches, and they were just trying to make everything. Or maybe they're just jackass trolls who say, hey, shit's about to pop off over here. I'm going to go see what's up there. Oh, I can get myself a free podium. May as well try that. So before we start jumping on that, I'd be willing to bet that's what it is. Johnny Antifa, who's pretending to be a MAGA guy, or Johnny MAGA guy who was pretending to be Antifa guy. I bet they're just assholes who are bored. With all these businesses shut down, maybe they have more time. But yeah, that was fucking nuts. What were they calling for? It was the electoral thing. They weren't gonna. They wanted to find more votes or worried about. Come on, guys. It's not working. It's not happening for you. All right? This one's over. Take your L and wait for 2 years. All right? But the fact that seems acceptable, and the fact that it wasn't reported almost like fucking 9/11 is mind-boggling to me. The fact that this was the fact that I saw more jokes about it when it first started, and I saw more memes about it than I did any sort of news coverage, it just blows my mind, because this isn't an event where that should have happened. This isn't an event where, honestly, and whatever the fuck I was watching, I guess I was watching the news because it was the Georgia thing, and I was still watching that. Whatever I was watching, and Law and Order reruns, of course, because, I'm a 40-year-old woman. But the fact that that coverage wasn't cut into for something like that, especially seeing the pictures and the aftermath of it, and what really bugs me about it is I think the reason it wasn't covered more like that, because this isn't shocking, and it should be. It really should be. The fact that people feel emboldened enough, that might not be the word, but the fact that any group of people, whether it's right-wing, left-wing, whether it's, I don't know, professional bowlers, whether it's landscapers, whether it's graffiti artists, the fact that they feel okay with scaling a wall and breaking in and stealing stuff from the fucking Capitol, and it's not getting reported like people are breaking into the fucking Capitol, is really, I think, kind of sad. I try not to get too serious on this, but the fact that that's not more shocking really kind of bugs me. The fact that it's so easy to joke about it. And of course, every social media person and every quote unquote news outlet is trying to compare the, Black Lives Matter or the protests that turned violent and destroyed businesses and things like that to this. First of all, it is 100%, maybe 1,000% more detrimental to our country, to our society, to fuck up privately owned businesses and to fuck up people's livelihoods and shit like that. All right? Before I get going on any of that, I know that. All right? Stealing a podium from the Capitol building affects less people than lighting homeboy's barbershop on fire, who has no way to feed his kids now. That might be a little much, but has had this business for 40 fucking years and now has to open a new one because, or has to try to figure out insurance, and guess what? Little underground insurance knowledge. I won't tell you how I know this. Most insurance policies don't cover for riots or acts of war. What do you think about that? So everyone, insurance. Read your fine print book, guys. So if you have a business, maybe even a home, but if you definitely have a business, I would look into that, especially if you're in a hotbed area, if you will. Definitely look into that because you may be shit out of luck if your policy is like a lot of other policies. So there's that. Where the fuck was I going? Oh, yeah. I mean, again, it's worse to fuck up private businesses. That's where I was going with all this. However, this group, the MAGA group, the ones that are taking down the flags and putting up their own flags or whatever, the fucked up thing is they were openly armed. I understand, Second Amendment, whatever, gun ownership. First of all, that argument's bullshit. Do I think, gun ownership is necessary? No. Do I think it's a right? Probably not. Do I think we should be allowed to? 100%. How are we going to do it? But to say, it's our right, and first of all, no one has any fucking right to anything, alright? Second of all, the only right you have is the right to remain silent. Anyway, second of all, the Second Amendment, if you read the whole Second Amendment, is clearly defined as saying, when it comes to a organized militia, or basically it's saying if you want to group up to make sure the government isn't overthrowing you in an organized militia, then you guys can carry guns. That's all it says. It doesn't say anything about private ownership. It doesn't say anything like that. The courts have helped with that. But if you look at the actual law, that's basically what it is. It's saying in defense against a tyrannical government, you could take up arms. Anything beyond that, or if you're in a private militia, anything beyond that is stuff that came after the Constitution. So I'm not arguing gun ownership. I'm all for it. But before you start arguing the Second Amendment shit, that's not what it was for. All right? Courts have changed and redefined it, all that. But anything beyond that came after that amendment was reached. But the fucked up thing about this whole thing is they were openly armed. But they went to the right place, if you will. They were worried about the vote. They were worried about the electoral stuff, so they went to the Capitol. When there's all these riots about the, police brutality and, I can't breathe, and that wasn't I can't breathe, was it? Then that was another. That's another sad thing. The fact that I get these all mixed up, but the guy kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes. Only one of those things. They went to the police station in one place. Other places, they were just burning down buildings, whatever buildings came across, and businesses like that. And I'm sure they could define, whatever, or this is the reason we're doing that. But I will give the MAGA group credit. They went to the right place. They were upset at this for voter fraud or the electoral. They went after the right place. All right. Now, here's the thing. Riots are always going to fucking happen. They always fucking happen. In my lifetime, we go back to, maybe not as widespread as this, but you go back to the Rodney King thing and Simi Valley, the 3 days of just nonsense where even the National Guard couldn't get in there and things along those lines. Riots are always going to happen. The problem we're having. Wow, I just sounded like a 14-year-old girl there. The problem we're having. The problem we're having is 100%, 100% the rhetoric coming from Washington. I'm not the president, yes, obviously, but it's coming from other places too. It's coming from the Democratic side. It's coming from, we can't stand for this, and we need to. Again, I saw quotes from Kamala Harris. I'm not going to try to quote them again. I saw quotes basically saying, we can't stand for this, and if we have to do something about it, we'll do. It's that sort of thing. And yes, you can argue that it started because of what the president's been saying and what he does say. Man, maybe I need to go back to the lavender calendar. I need to go back to the candle. I'm not really as angry, but I'm kind of all over the place, aren't I? Anyway, the rhetoric is coming from both sides, and you could say it started with Trump, and you may have a point, at least in recent history, within the last 10, 12 years. You may have a point when it comes to that. I'll listen to that point. I'm not going to argue that, because so the rhetoric coming from Washington, or our elected officials, may have led more to this, all right? May have led more to... That may have emboldened... I would be hard-pressed to think 6 years ago, or, 2003, I guess that's 18 years now? 17 years ago, people would have felt okay with scaling the Capitol wall because they didn't like how something was going on. Obviously, something has changed. All right, and it is the acceptance of extremism, I guess. And I'm not going to argue where it started or what have you, but the fact that it's so not shocking is bothersome. So it had to start at Washington, but I'm going to put a lot of the blame on the media, not the liberal media, not the whatever. The fact that at least one or at least two or all sorts of these protests that turn violent, that turn into, and this might not even be the media. This could be the social media thing. This could just be, the nature of the beast, if you will. But the fact that you could find a few reputable places that will somewhat defend illegal and destructive actions during demonstrations, the fact that you could find that, and the fact that there's enough media outlets who will play into that, who will say, hey, look, our readers want to see this, so we'll make sure this is a thing. The fact that there's enough of that leads there to be more acceptance of it. That's why you fuckers need to get me into the mainstream, because I'll settle everybody down. I'll tell everyone to shut the fuck up. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I'm a little, in case you couldn't tell, I'm a little scatterbrained when it comes to all this. I keep seeing news come up. I didn't want to talk too much about it because I prefer a too late analysis than a too early one. All right. I am definitely, I have terrible, this is what it's going to count to. I have terrible eyesight, all right? I could basically, if I took off my glasses in a dark building and no one made a sound, if there was 60 people in that building, I couldn't tell, all right? So what I'm going to do, instead of predictions, I prefer to use hindsight, because hindsight's always 20/20, and that's the only time I'll ever have good vision. So, anyway, a lot of this stuff, I'm not going to talk about the aftermath or what gets announced, because I just saw something where the White House is saying now that there's going to be a peaceful transition and with it, even though within the last, 36 hours, they said there wasn't going to be, and they're talking, Pence. I'm going to go go into that all on my next episode. It's going to be less than a week away. So before you say I'm, not looking into it or I'm too, whatever. I'm going into it. I just would prefer to use hindsight. All right. So again, I was a little scatterbrained about that. Like I said, I'm seeing the updates come in at the same time. I'm seeing them. Grab another beer here. They're coming in live on this, but I'm just a little baffled why this wasn't covered in a different fashion than any other news story, and especially why I had to see it through memes first before I even got news alerts on my phone. It's if you couldn't tell. All right, I'm done with that. All right, I'm going to go into it more, and with the way shit's going, I'm probably going to have more than an hour next time to do it, so I have to cut that down somehow, because I do feel bad because I did put out that 4-hour episode, and so I feel bad because I expect, I would like everyone to listen to all my episodes, even though I say way too much. I know it. I even title an episode after it. I know that. So, but the fact that you still listen is fine, and I'm doing my best to stop those verbal crutches, if you will. I'm doing my best, but again, I'm just a drunk 30-year-old who's upset about the world and who bought a microphone. So there's a show. I'm gonna away from politics. There's a show on Access TV, Year in Music, where they say 85. Here's all the songs that came out in 85, and they pretend to, or 96. Here's what came out in 96, or here's what came out in 2000, and they just go through all that and talk about the music. Here I go. And this is 100% jealousy, and this is 100% concern for the career path I am trying to take. They had two people from iHeartRadio that were telling us about one of the years in music, 02 or, whatever. Looked early 30s, late 20s. They were good looking. You never used to be allowed to work in the radio if you were good looking. What the fuck are they doing? My only hope is that these two are the only two good looking ones who work for iHeartRadio, and so they throw them on TV. But if being good looking is gonna be a factor in my, I guess, career ceiling or my career advancement in the podcast game, if that's gonna be a factor, I'm fucked. The only reason I decided to do a podcast and why I'm not starting with a video thing and why I'm not a nude model or what have you is because I ain't pretty. I mean, at best, I'm a male 4. So, at best. So, if being pretty is gonna be a barrier for me, I'm fucked. I may as well just, go back to trying to find cheap deals at pawn shops and resell them at other ones for a bigger price. I don't know. Go to Goodwill and sell off shit. I may as well go back to that, or repairing old shopping carts and selling them back to stores. I may go back to that because if being pretty is gonna be a factor, I am fucked. So since I last recorded, how you like that segue? No, I'm not pretty enough, so I'm fucked. Since I last recorded, there's been a couple new noteworthy things that happened in the world of boxing. And people ask me, I try to say people to make it sound like, I'm this big famous guy. 2 people have asked me, why do you, see, I did it again, why do you talk about boxing as much. Here's why. I could talk about any sport you want. I'm watching the NBA right now. I know barely anything about it. Not barely anything about it. I know barely anything about current players and things like that. I know Luka Doncic or whatever, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I know he's a big deal now. You know, I could talk about that, and I could watch a basketball game. But why do you talk about boxing so much? And here's the reason. As a boxing fan, I know how hard it is to find boxing news, boxing coverage, boxing. So if I could talk to, and as I say that, Luka just makes a steal and goes down and makes a layup. If I can give a sort of outlet, or not necessarily outlet, if I could give another voice to the fight game, as they call it, if I give another voice to that without having to find a specialized thing, maybe it'll help the game. Maybe it'll help more fans get in, and the more fans that get in, the more fights we have on TV, so I win. It's just about me winning. So that's why I talk about boxing so much. Basically, I want to be able to tell sports fans about boxing without them having to go deep into the podcast world to find a boxing podcast. So, there was the Ryan Garcia fight, which I didn't get to watch live. I did rewatch it, but however, I had to watch it without the commentary because I don't know why it wasn't working, but for some reason on the app, I couldn't get the replay of the fight. Anyway, so there was a PBC card on Fox, and it was actually a pretty eventful card. The first fight, I don't remember who was fighting. All I remember is the trainer for one of the fighters was wearing Philadelphia Flyer stuff, and it annoyed me that his fighter didn't win. Now, with that fight, it was abundantly clear that, you know, when they stopped the fight, the guy wasn't going to win. And the commentators, most specifically, and I'm going to have to apologize to this guy a little bit later, so calm down. But Brian Kenny's, you know, why wouldn't they stop this fight sooner? Why wouldn't they stop this fight sooner? The referee needs to step in. The referee needs to step in. We've talked about that before. I've talked about this on the podcast ad nauseum. All right. Now, 2 fights later, he's complaining that the referee stopped the fight too early. Oh, he got up within the 10 count, but, you know, just because he didn't look right, he stopped it. Make up your fucking mind. It was less than an hour earlier you were upset about the opposite thing. Well, the referee needs to stop it. I don't care if he can get up between the 8. He doesn't look right. Or, oh, no. Make up your fucking mind, Brian Kenny. And then I talked about when the Hall of Fame was announced, Ann Wolfe going into the Hall of Fame. One of her main fighters, James Kirkland, which I didn't know had been to prison recently, which was news to me. Again, his first fight with Ann Wolfe, he got knocked out in the first round. This fight, no Ann Wolfe in the corner, gets knocked out in the first round. This could have been prison rust, if that's a thing, or what have you. There's a lot of reasons, but obviously the bitch got in the Hall of Fame for a reason. If a guy leaves her and gets knocked out in the first round twice after leaving you, after being a championship contender, I think you know what the fuck you're doing, hon. So, everyone who calls me sexist, just know I'm not sexist. I just want you broads to earn it the way you should. Alright. Here's what I really have to do. I have to apologize quickly to Brian Kenny, because after watching these fights, after the last episode, where I was outraged at the way he called the fight, because, oh, this is clear. Watching this in a different view, Brian Kenny thinks every fight's a blowout regardless of what it looks like, regardless of who's winning, who's losing. Every fight that night, even relatively close ones, even rounds that, oh, how did he finish off that round? Well, because he wasn't hurt that bad. Or because the guy didn't finish it off. Every fight is the biggest beatdown in the world when Brian Kenny's commentating it, alright? I have to apologize because I accused him of being a company dick sucker. When it just turns out that he thinks every fight's a blowout. If one person's winning the fight, they must be winning big, and the other guy shouldn't be in the ring with him. So it's every fight. So I apologize for calling you a brand homer, because obviously you just think every fight is a blowout. Where I really have to apologize is to the man I refer to as Jigsaw. I refer to him as... I have to apologize to the puppet Joe Goosen. Alright? If you watch any boxing on Fox, he's the older gentleman who, again, has the facial structure of a puppet. I must apologize to the puppet. The only real reason I'm apologizing, I know I've gone off on him before. And I know I've been... whatever. He bugs me. He bugs me a lot. And, he talks about being a trainer, but quite honestly, anyone that they show him training recently is a lower card guy. I mean, he's training Chris Ariel. Anyway, that's a little too deep for a different day. But my apologies to the puppet. He, after one of the interviews where, he was they were talking about pound for pound guys, and they were talking, and Joe Goosen just says, "Hey, look, Brian, I know you're in love with Canelo." It's like, fucking finally. Yes, he clearly is in love with Canelo, but it was a guy fucking calling. The fact that he called him on it on national TV redeemed him a little bit in my book. He still bugs the shit out of me. I don't know. The fact that he just straight up called him out, basically said the same thing I said. Like, you suck Canelo's dick every time you're covering a fight of his. Alvarez isn't as good as you make him out to be. The fact that one line summed it all up. And really what it did is it made me feel warm inside. Knowing that my feelings and my analysis were mirrored by someone who's officially in the boxing game really just warmed my heart. Really just let me know that I'm on the right path. That this fucking guy sitting next to him said, "Hey, we all heard you. You're in love with Canelo Alvarez." Alright, that being said, the big fight that happened, Ryan Garcia, big name, he's one of the big names on the young guy on the zone. Again, like I said, I don't know how the fight was covered. Simply for the fact that where I had to watch it, because it wasn't working on the app, I had to watch it through, some other one. Whatever. Ryan Garcia knockout in the 7th round, and knocked the guy out in the 7th round with a body shot. Which I always love a good body shot knocking somebody down, because they get so annoyed because their head's clear, but they're fucking their legs aren't working, and they get so annoyed. It's fucking great. But gets a knockout with a body shot. And then proceeds to call out Tank Davis. Which is fine. You're in that division. That's what you have to do. I get it. But everyone from De La Hoya to anyone on the DAZN side, again, can't speak for anyone else, basically saying, Garcia's going to walk through. The fuck he is. Dude, you got knocked down in this fight, and it took you 7 rounds to get this guy out. And Christ, I should have fucking wrote down who he was fighting. I don't know. It's a guy who's been around for a while. As a boxing fan, the name should be on the tip of my tongue, but it's not. So here's where you're running into problems, Garcia. You knocked out a guy in the 7th round. Davis knocked out a former multi-division champ and a guy who, up until about a year and a half ago, looked like you would need a goddamn miracle to beat him. And it looked like the only people who did beat him were guys who got a miracle in the ring. He knocked out Leo Santa Cruz in the 4th round on one punch. There was a little bit of wearing down and everything like that, but really it was one uppercut shot that put him to sleep. And put him to sleep. It wasn't just he couldn't get out or he was wobbling. No, that fucker wasn't getting up. It looked dangerous when he fucking went down. And the fact that Ryan Garcia and professionals in the boxing community are saying that Ryan Garcia is going to walk dude, I'm going to say it right now. Again, I prefer hindsight 2020, but I'm going to do one prediction. If and when, not if and when. If they fight within the next year and a half, barring any sort of injury or anything like that, Davis will walk through Garcia like he's standing still. Again, he knocked out Leo Santa Cruz. Look him up. Look him up, squareheads, if you don't know who he is. If you don't recognize the name, look up Leo Santa Cruz. Look at his fight highlights. Look at all that. And then watch the knockout from Davis. Tell me after watching that guy get embarrassed the way he did, if you trust anyone's chances against Davis after seeing that. So, decided to end with a little boxing commentary. But the biggest things I wanted to talk about in my boxing commentary were my apologies to Brian Kenny on a smaller level, and my apologies to the puppet Joe Goosen, because for as much as I talk shit about him, he called out Brian Kenny on national TV, and goddamn, I loved it. And the other main thing I had, Garcia, you won. Congratulations. The way things look right now, you still have no chance against Tank Davis. I don't care how much you talk. I don't care how much your camp talks. The fact that Davis can knock out Santa Cruz with one quick uppercut, and it takes you 7 rounds to knock out this guy. I should have really fucking wrote it down. And, since this is a podcast pre-recorded, I could pause, look up the name, and go, nah, it's not what you guys came here for. You came here with mediocre research and hopefully somewhat entertaining analysis of it. All right, finishing up the last beer there. Yeah, so Garcia, 7th round knockout with a body shot, which is impressive. But with what Davis did to Santa Cruz, I would be a little hesitant to talk that much shit. Just going to say that his most recent performance, bigger name, better performance. There you have it. And again, going back to what I said earlier, I didn't talk a whole lot about what's going on with now that the election in Georgia's over, and since this happened, I didn't because, like I said, I'm seeing news articles pop up as we speak right now, giving updates, and I'm getting contradictory updates and things along those lines. So, again, I'm a hindsight guy. So next week is probably going to be very heavy on I guess it's week 1 of the NFL playoffs. I could talk a little bit, but then that's another thing. All my squareheads, let me know if you would like to hear my very amateur analysis of the NFL playoffs, because I could start with that next time and go further into, the politics side of it or whatever. But I really wanted to see what happens with all that. So which will be on the normal day. On the normal day. Don't worry. I want to go into that a little more and kind of look back at the week that was and really find out if what's going on with the whole nonsense with the Capitol being stormed and what the president's saying and what the right's saying and Romney and Pelosi and Pence, and there's all sorts of shit going on with that. Now, I will leave my squareheads with this question. I'm watching my second NBA game of the year. They are playing in Denver. It's Denver versus Dallas. And there are no fans in the stadium. And they are playing in Dallas. After watching what the NFL went through, is there a specific reason you're not doing the whole bubble thing again? Is there that big of a home court advantage in basketball, even with no fans? I don't get it. It just seems... Hockey's the same way. I don't think... If we're still under these same restrictions, hockey should be the same way. You know, you have your 3 hub cities or your 2 hub cities or whatever. You play out of there. Is there that big of a difference? I mean, Christ, don't even play in fucking big buildings. You can have that same size of ice, and I don't know. Anyway, here's my thing that I'm gonna need some people to let me know. Is it the situation where some of the fans are being let in and some of them aren't, like football? And then I'm completely talking out of my ass. So that's the question I pose to you all. Am I a dumbass or am I missing something? Or both? Well, thank you for checking out this week's episode. Again, sorry it was late, but I appreciate you sticking with me. I'm hoping it was a better show than it would have been, even though I was all over the goddamn place on this one. Thank you for checking out Winmer Brothers Heffy from Portland, Oregon. Great beer for whatever you're doing. You know, even Hefeweizens are a lot of them I find, you know, are a little annoying to drink in the winter, but this one's actually very good, even during winter months. So I hope 2021 has turned everything around for you guys. Honestly, virus didn't hit till about March. So we still got fucking 3 more months of this shit. So calm down, everybody. If we're waiting for a year to happen. All right, check me out. Facebook. Yep, have a Facebook. Instagram, Twitter. Hit me up on email. C2hour at Gmail. Hit me up at all those places. I check them. I gave fucking questions for you assholes. Give me beer recommendations of beers that I can find in the Northwest. Okay? Some of you missed that part. Once again, I went through this whole thing about, you know, my listeners tripling or whatever. It's clearly gone up quite a bit. And I'm even at quite a bit of listeners, even without posting one in January. So I want to thank you all. Again, share it around. First rule of Fight Club. Share it around. Let me know what you think. And if there's nothing else, I will see you guys next week.